Good morning, everybody. Well, I guess it's my morning. It's Jay's early afternoon. It is 6 a.m. here. One in in the afternoon there, right?
2 p.m. 2 p.m.
2 p.m. All right, so close. Anyway, Jay just got done with the Dropzone TV Grand Tournament where he brought Grey Knights to third place. He beat some Tyranids, Chaos Knights, Aeldari, Hail of Doom. It looks like there was some stiff competition, and also Jay brought a very interesting list with some cool tech choices that we haven't seen before, at least not doing well. And I am excited to work with you and break that down. So, Jay, let's just how long have you been playing, and why did you pick Grey Knights?
Well, I started when I was 13. Went into secondary school, and my friend had a white dwarf, and showed me some of the pictures. And it wasn't actually Grey Knights at the time; it was Deathwing Terminators. And to be fair, I'm a Dark Angels player at heart. Unfortunately, Grey Knights and other factions are far superior to the Dark Angels, unless you want to play a boring matchup. So Grey Knights I kind of picked up in 5th ed, and it was just amazing stuff. You had like everyone was a psyker, storm bolters everywhere. You had like close combat weapons everywhere. They felt like they could do anything. And for a long time they were, when I explained to my non-40k friends, they were space wizards, just going around cleansing the universe with Xenos. And Yeah, that kind of like set me off. I think I stopped when I found out more about girls, and put side benched the 40k for a bit. And after uni, my friend bought me a Horus Heresy book, and that kind of piqued my interest back into 40k, and haven't looked back since.
That's awesome, man. So you've been playing for a long time then. I mean, with a pretty long break, but still, like, you know, that's
Yeah,
that's awesome.
yeah, it's been probably competitively more recently, but definitely for fun, from 26 onwards.
Nice. All right. Well, I mean, I started right at the beginning of ninth, so this is all like new ground for me.
You haven't missed anything then, because some of the other editions were terrible.
Yeah, I've heard, but there's like nostalgia, and then it's the only game in town for a while there. Yeah, pretty pretty interesting. I do want to talk to you about your list though. So
Yeah.
you have a fascinating list. You have a lot of cool tech here. We see some normal like staples, and I realize this is not like this was the twilight of Nockmund, and this was like your final tournament with before the CP changes and all of that. So the list, what you're going to run, will be very, very different than this, I'm assuming. But I do want to talk about this because I think it's important that people not get locked into one paradigm of like, well, it's 4 Dread Knights and that's it. Like, that's the only thing playable, because you've proven that that isn't the case, even though we had a lot of thoughts and ideas about what was good. So let me switch over to the list here so our viewers can follow along. I'll let you take it away if you want to do a quick overview of the list, and then we'll go into more granular detail after that.
Yeah, sure. I think I've got like Drago, a librarian, and a grandmaster with all the tech. 3 strike squads, 3 inceptors, 2 with halberds and the sergeant with a hammer, and the sword with the sergeant with a hammer. 3 razorbacks with twin link las cannons, and I think at the time it was a 7-man paladin squad.
Looks like it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yay, we can count.
Yeah, well, my list has changed since then, but
Sure.
that's why I'm trying to remember it. I think what I was so going on to like Warlord traits, I think I had the Warlord trait of Hammer of Righteousness on the Grandmaster jump back guy, Dread Knight guy. That's mainly because it's just when he gets into combat, pretty much
Yeah.
smashes
you
face
you're
with
like
plus.
you're hitting on twos and you're wounding on twos, and then you were prescient brethren, so you can always just pop the strat to reroll ones to hit and ones to wound. Yeah, it's a pretty good combo. I'm a huge fan.
Yeah. When Manny from Glasshammer mentioned it, I was like, this is like a no-brainer for me. And I think it was I did run the 4 Dread Knight list. I don't like to say that I know you mentioned that previously.
No, yeah. My point isn't that it's a bad list. I was just like saying it's good to be thinking out of the box, like just a little bit, right?
Yeah. I think like the Dread Knights were good fun, but Armor of Contempt has made lots of infantry units like so much more playable.
Mm-hmm.
So I think going back to the list, so that Grandmaster essentially just shunts up forward with the teleporter, gets right in the enemy's face, and if they want to shoot him, he teleports away. If he wants to get into combat with him, he just pops the 3-up invulnerable strat. Relic,
Yeah.
and he's just a pain, and just disrupts my opponents. And just gives them that threat where danger close, and they have to try and deal with him or try and avoid him as best they can. And then my Librarian, he is kind of more of a support role because he's not there
Yep.
for combat. He's just sending forward units with Gate of Infinity and trying to put Sanctuary off on other guys. So I think even in this list, I was prepping for the Nephilim and kind of I think I only had one Warlord trait in this one. I think I
I
only had,
see. Yeah, I see unyielding anvil and then hammer of righteousness. So you've got at least two. Oh, and then you also have a psychic epitome is on the Grandmaster in the Dread Knight, which is interesting. And then you also have the support librarian, as you were just saying,
yeah.
where we're used to seeing the mortal wounds librarian, who's supposed to go Nova and do 14 mortal wounds or whatever, and then normally doesn't.
Yeah, so I kind of done it the other way with the Grandmaster. He would jump forward, get danger close, as I was saying, and this is where my strategy is going to change now massively. I
Mm,
was spending between 6 and 8 CP in turn one, so I would teleport the Grandmaster forward with 2 CP. When he's within 9 inches, I'm going to be spending 1 CP to cast with 3 dice, and another CP possibly to cast another power with him.
yeah,
And then
because you want to do like empiric amplification smite and then like vortex to, or
yeah,
I'm sorry, so
so it'd be
two,
so it'd be
so
Vortex of Doom and Smite if I want to, or
right,
because I don't really have any psi weapons. I'm not really using empiric amplification unless I'm trying to get into combat with something because I'll just
yeah,
do that extra damage. But yeah, the getting forward, I think in a previous matchup, I played David Gaylord in I think it was Bristol GT, and he was really shocked at how much that Dread Knight actually dished out. I think I did Smite and Vortex of Doom with Epitome, and I did 14 mortal wounds from those 2 powers into
yeah.
a flying hive tyrant, which he was really upset about, and
Uh,
that's kind of where this list worked with him as well.
yeah.
And
Psychic epitome only counts for witchfire, right? Which smite isn't, right?
yeah, so it was just the Vortex of Doom.
Yeah, but I
So
mean,
it would have,
still, it's
yeah,
extra damage is good. um, that's an interest. Like, I love that take though, because like having the support librarian, that's actually a big deal. That's 2 casts, 2 denies, and then you even brought the artisan nullifier matrix. So within 9 inches of him, if I
it's
is
only
it
6
9 or
inches.
6? It's 6.
6
Okay.
inches.
Is it the like Sanctic Shard that's 9 inches? Then there's some relic that we have that's longer than you think it is. But anyway, so you have Peril's protection in a big bubble, which
Yeah.
did you bring that because you roll like Stefan from One Last Blade on your like psychic tests, or is that like Aeldari and Nids like protection?
It is, yeah. So that's for the protection. Like the number of times that I would roll doubles or I would have perils, it was just so frustrating that I could potentially lose a model. And when you're not running apothecary, you can't really, you're not healing anybody or bringing back anything. So that
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
really useful.
And then you brought Drago. We are seeing him now everywhere. He's in every list now. I don't think I've seen a single Grey Knights list talking about the Nephilim changes that don't bring him. Not only is he a beast in combat, not only does he have a 3-up invul, but this dude is basically another librarian. He casts 2 and denies 2. He's another Libby.
And that's it, because I think he takes three powers as well, so you
Yeah.
can be more flexible with him. And I was using him as another almost support character, but the only problem is 180 points. You say that you see him in all lists now. I've actually dropped him.
Oh, you did? Nice.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that.
So I've dropped him for Castle and Crow, and that's mainly because of the missions which I played in this tournament. Kind of was his last hurrah.
Okay.
I think in the Necrons one he did really well, and the Tyranids one he did really well, Chaos one he did really well. But in the Aeldari game, he went into um the the Avatar and barely wounded him. Did just enough to kill him, but it
Yeah.
was a he then just whiffed his saves and was immediately annihilated.
I
But he is good fun, and he
yeah,
is tough.
I see Drago being used a lot where, because in the new Nephilim book we can take, all 3 of our uh faction secondaries if we wanted, not that we would, but I see teleport assault being picked a lot more than I ever have. After it got buffed to include gate, that was huge. And then it's just 4 points straight up. So I see like Drago is, puts reroll all hits on something that you need to go boom on that turn, and then they just run. That's primarily why you bring Drago. And then he is a good support character, and if he gets tied up in combat, he can be surprising. But yeah, I mean, he's no Black Blade of Antwar. He's no Trajan Valoris.
Yeah, again, it's great. He in the games that I played with him, but I think again, the reason why I ended up losing to Liam in that 5th game against Drukhari, he went into 3 grotesques, and I think he didn't do a single wound, and then was
Ooh.
summarily removed by the fact that Liam then used his reroll to wound strat, and I think he made like 16 wounds on me, which I just could not make saves.
Yeah, that's rough. He has like 7 wounds, but
It's not enough.
yeah, with 2 damage everywhere,
Yeah.
or 3 damage everywhere, it hurts a lot.
But going back to the list, I think it's the Armor of Content made everything so much better, because you're in the Tide of Shadows. If you're going second, you're essentially counters in cover, reducing AP. So you're essentially reducing AP by 2
Yeah.
to everything. So AP2 is your normal 3-up save. AP1 is your 2-up save.
Yeah.
So
And then the -1 to hit, to like be hit, is
yeah,
I
and that too.
I've only played 1 Nephilim game so far, and it was against my buddy with Orcs. And going from 5s to 6s to hit is just like, wow. That sucks so bad.
Yeah, it's surprising because I think I played another friend called Liam, with his Eldar and his Halo team recently, practicing the Nephilim, and it's surprising how changing from a 3 to a 4 really lowers your hit ratio, and it makes your Marines, your Grey Knights, more survivable.
100% agree. Like, and we'll get into Hail of Doom specifically when we talk about your matchups, but that's a not enjoyable combination. All right,
It's
and
not.
then we're gonna skip over your troops. Like we all know the strike squads. They're great. They're cheap. They are for what they can. Like they know hammer hand. Like they are little beat sticks. They're not super survivable, but they are little beat sticks, which is nice. And then elites. So you have that 7-man paladin squad. Obviously, you can't combat squad them now, so you were running them around as a big old brick. This is the kind of thing where I'd be like, they're gonna get Drago rerolls, right? Because like it's where you're gonna get the most benefit from all those rerolls. So let's hear about what you were like. What were you doing? What like they were clearly a cornerstone of the whole list. So what were their role?
They would go into the center objective and pretty much beat off anybody coming towards it and hold off anything coming that way. That you gave them the Drago rerolls. They have armored resilience and hammer hand. You're only really going to cast one, but just in case you wanted to swap up. So the armor resilience making them a 1-up save in cover, counting as a 0-up save with the armor of contempt is absolutely amazing. I think being shot at by AP -4 and telling them I've got a 3-up save generally upset people.
Plasma, what's that?
I think they went into the Silent King and absolutely made a mess of him. He was hitting them left, right, and center, and I know he's going to get even better. But the fact that they're only AP like 3 and 2, they're just shrugging it off and not caring much.
Yeah, always got 2-ups basically. Armored resilience. It's interesting how like the 9th book came out. People were really upset about Paladins. Me too. Very expensive. But combined armor and resilience with AOC, like armor of contempt, that just changed the game kind of. You almost don't care that they can't take storm shields now because they effectively have a castable storm shield, right? Which is pretty neat. Pretty neat. And then you had some interceptors here, and you put a hammer on each sergeant, which I thought was an interesting tech choice.
Mainly to go into vehicles. As you can tell from the army, there's not a lot of anti-tank. There's the 6 las cannons from the Razorbacks, and then it's just combat. And to go in and just do flat 3 damage with a Thunderhammer is tasty. Again, -3, also really good.
Yeah.
Again, going into other armies which have AOC.
Yeah, and man, it's so interesting to see that. That's a lot of points, just an extra like hammers,
10.
But
yeah. Yeah, again, it's just the case if you go against big again, Drukhari have got grotesque and stuff, so you need like 2 to go through to kill one of the grotesques, 3 to go through for a Kronos or a Talos, which is insane. But again, it's just like anything that has like feel no pain, it's just making sure that more damage goes through.
Yeah. And then also if you empirically amplify like some Death Shroud Terminators and you run in there, you're potentially like killing one every time the hammer actually goes through, which is pretty legitimate. And then we'll go to what first jumped out at me when I read your list on GoonHammer. I was like, 3 Razorbacks with las cannons? Like this like kid just running what he had in his closet?
That's totally underestimated. I really rated them for a long time now, and they're great to they give my Inceptors an extra 3-inch movement essentially with the disembark. So all my Inceptors are safe in the Razorback, so they're not getting shot at. They're the ones that are going to go shoot up the table and claim those objectives or get into those back lines. I think again going with my play style, I'm super aggressive. So all 3 of those are jumping forward.
Go on.
So all 3 of those jumping forward. The Grandmaster's jumping forward. I'm teleporting the Paladins. So you've got 5 threats right in your face, whilst the back line is just I'm going to claim some objectives. And then again, you've got engagement fronts. So Razorback counts as a vehicle, so therefore you can just put those into those quarters and score points pretty early on.
Uh,
And
um,
if they're shooting at my Razorbacks, they're not shooting at my troops.
that's true. Yeah, I have been like twin lasses on anything I've ever run. Like it could be my Corvus Blackstar for my Death Watch. It could be, you know, a Razorback or a Dreadnought. Like I know the Astral Aim Dreadnought was a big thing in 8th, where you could just hide behind, you know, a wall and just blast anyway. And every time, no matter how many buffs I like put on them, either everything misses or everything fails to a wound, or it's like 1 damage goes through. It feels so bad when you roll a 1 on the damage die for a d6.
Don't go there. I've a number of times I've cursed the dice gods over finally them failing a save and then rolling of this terrible one and not having enough CP to change it.
Yeah. So, like, if you look at your interceptor squads, you have 3 of them.
Yeah.
Each of them came with a hammer. So if you drop that, you got 30 points. And then if you replace the Razorbacks, like every Razorback is basically another interceptor squad if you take away the hammer. Did you find that they did so much work for you, that it was worth having half as many interceptors on the board as having just 3 twin laskins?
Surprisingly, yes. So, like again, in the Drukhari game, I tied up some of his tied up some grotesques, tied up some incubi, just by like just tagging tagging them in combat, and them just not having enough to get through, especially with armor contempt. Just having a 5-up save, just getting lucky, and he's winning me on like 4s or 5s, depending if he's got Drazar nearby. But
Right.
it was again, like I said, it's just being able to spread out. They're surprisingly resilient, and they've actually gone down in points, so they're down 10 points each, essentially. So
Oh, are they 110 now, or are they 120
they're
still?
they're 110
Okay.
with the
All right.
last cannons, or if you want to take heavy bolters, the flat 100.
Nice.
So it's like
No.
really useful. And I know
Yeah,
having more bodies is good, and I know I've seen lots of people take like 30 Inceptors to tournaments, but it's just you're moving 12, I'm moving 15, so I'm
yeah.
getting that extra range. Plus, if I go second, I'm not getting hit by like harpies flying over and just shooting the hell out of me, or if I play against someone like Steve Box with his advancing charging Death Guard, they're going to hit my Razorbacks, not hit my troops. So.
Yeah. I mean, fantastic points. I've never heard of an advancing charging Death Guard army.
Not Death Guard, Death Company, sorry, Blood Angels.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I was gonna say,
Sorry.
like, how does he do that? That's amazing. That makes them
Sorry.
so scary now. Because usually they're slow. That's their thing. But all right. There are a lot of death. There's Death Company, Death Watch, Death Guard, Death this, Death what, like, you know,
It's 40,
death. Yeah.
it's 40k. There's a lot of death.
Yeah, exactly. All the same. It's it's the same names, and then they just kind of like throw them in a hat, I guess, and they pick. Yeah. Anyway, so let's talk about what secondaries you generally were thinking. Obviously, you've already mentioned a few. In this Nockmund tournament, it would have been Purifying Ritual, and sounds like Engage, and then probably Stranglehold, because that's what everybody took all the time forever, right?
We can't
Especially.
take both. You can't take both. You could either
Oh,
take Strangle or
oh, right,
Engage.
or Engage, right?
But I think in some of them, in the first couple of games, I did play Stranglehold, kind of was a bit of a last hurrah. And then in the later games, I decided that maybe I should try not going for the one that's not going to be there anymore and kind of get some last minute practice in. So I was taking more on the Engage towards the end, which probably didn't help, and that's probably why I lost to Liam. But
Yeah.
it was yeah. So like you said about the teleport strike, that it's gone from 3 points to 4 points. So if you get it 3 times, you're going to get 12, which is a big buff. And like you said, you can do it from teleports. So teleporting, teleport shunt with the Grandmaster and the Gate of Infinity. So you've got
Yeah.
3 ways of getting those points. So if you can whittle some stuff down and going by the way of how aggressive I am in those games, it's quite good to get on. And I did practice that again recently, yeah, it's definitely a choice. But then it's in the same category as grind, so it's like, do I take that, or am I going to kill more, or do I have
Yeah.
to like limit myself to these specifics?
Yeah, that's the like I said, I've only played one Nephilim game against orcs, and the fact that I took teleport strike or whichever it's called,
Yeah.
like that actually, I was having to spend CP and get way out of like position to even try to get the kills, and it worked out for the first 2 turns, but then I was out of command points, and you're just like, so yeah, grind. That's a great point. Like, is it better than just taking grind?
Yeah,
Um,
exactly. So it's one of those. You can either, if you're playing a army that has low body count, you kind of want to put more of your models in reserve, so therefore you can spread out over time. But if you're got lots of units in your opponent's army, there's probably no point. You might as well just go for the grind.
yeah. All right. Very cool. Well, let's get into your matchups then. How about that?
Sure.
So round one, you
Round one.
immediately go against Necrons. I looked at his list very briefly, and the only thing that stood out was he brought the Silent King, which you already mentioned a little bit, but let's talk about this matchup.
This this was slightly unfair. So, I think it might have been the matchup where he couldn't advance forward, and I I think he went first, and he couldn't see anything of mine. So he moved forward, and then, as I said, I was super aggressive. I moved everything forward, got into combat across the board, took him off all the objectives, and kind of bullied him back into his own corner with the Silent King. Um, the and because Arm of Contempt, they were just really resilient against everything. He was reluctant to shoot my Grandmaster, so the Grandmaster just walked
Oh
up the
man,
table
yeah.
and just got into everything. And he was very menacing, and just I think he picked up Wraiths, and some, if I recall, Skullback Destroyers were just annihilated by him. Um, and I could just jump all my Inceptors onto objectives and score a lot of points early on and deny him. So I think against Necrons, it was just a case of he couldn't really get out of his corner. Everything that came out was just wiped out pretty nastily. And I think even later on in the end of the game, I got the Paladins into combat with the Silent King, and I think he killed one over 2 rounds of combat, which is quite bless you,
Thank
which
you.
was quite sad for my opponent. He was very distraught. And then yeah, the Thunder Hammer. I think I hit 5 times
Oh, man.
because Paladins are hitting on threes even with the -1. And then with the Drago rerolls and then wounding on threes, and it was just
Yeah.
make some 4-up saves or take 3 damage, and I think he failed 3, so that was 9 damage just off of that one, and then mortal wounded him with the rest of the attacks.
Oh, yeah, actually that's a great point. What's your general feeling about tides? Like as you move from tide to tide, obviously if you're going second, you start in shadows, but if you're going first, I mean, and it depends on like the mission and all of that. I understand, but just generally speaking, what do you see in most games? Like, what's your tide? Like,
I, I
like
think
how? Sorry,
I think
go
it's
ahead.
I think it's always for me is always going to be Tide of Shadows, even if I go first turn one, because if you whiff, you've still got that defense when they
Mm-hmm.
come back at you. I think I need to be danger close, so like within charge range of at least 3 units before I even think of changing into conversion for the mortal wound output.
Okay. Yeah, I've been finding that in my games, I really like. I don't know, about 6 months ago, it clicked like how good celerity is. Like, I really think that that was kind of poo-pooed as a tide when the book came out, and I'm not saying it couldn't be better, but like it's better than people think. Like coming out of Deep Strike at the 9-inch charge with no buffs, only a reroll, you're at like an 88% chance or something silly of like making that charge. It's not guaranteed, but it's super close to being guaranteed, right? Like it's just I don't know. I find I usually go shadows, celerity, and then maybe convergence at the end, but sometimes just being in celerity is enough. But I will also preface this with I'm the Scrooge of the middle tables. I'm not a top tier player. Like let's be honest about that. So
Are you being modest?
no. I, the tournament results speak for themselves. I am a middling player.
Fair enough. I've only ever really gone with those two. Because like I said, I'm aggressive with the movement in the turn one anyway, with the extra movement from the Razorback. So, I'm either waiting for the turn two pounce, um, with like 5 units, or I'm trying to defend myself from the counterattack. So the Tide of Shadows, I think I didn't even come out of Tide of Shadows on against the Aeldari and Hail of Doom, but in
Oh
the
yeah, I
Necrons,
wouldn't.
yeah, yeah,
I
but with the
wouldn't.
Necrons, the Nids, the Chaos Knights, obviously I'm going to go into Tide of Convergence
Yeah.
as soon as I get into combat, just to do those extra wounds.
All right.
Yes,
Well, so your Necron win was judicious. It was 93 to 28.
yeah, it was a bit of a bullying.
Oh man, especially round one. Like you psych yourself up to go to this GT. You're playing Necrons, which haven't had their buffs. Like they aren't as good when this tournament happened as they are now, right? So
Uh,
like,
fair. I
well,
still think Necrons are really good.
I'm not trying to I'm not trying to say like you didn't win this. What my point was your opponent, right? He just loves his Necrons. He's going in anyway. He knows he's not going to win anything, right? Like, well, I mean, he's not going to like take first, you know? And then to just get like I would be heartbroken. Like
It was yeah, it was like I said, I don't think he was expecting me to be so aggressive. So
that's a fair point.
coming out and just wiping his units that came into middle board, and then just leaving him in his deployment zone, and then as you can see from the point score, stopping him scoring a secondary, stopping him scoring many primaries. It was just yeah, I felt bad.
I mean, nice guy, I assume, right?
Lovely guy,
Yeah.
lovely guy. I think we we had a bit of a debate because the Silent King has a ability to deny the witch,
Okay.
but he had it in his head that he could deny anywhere on the table because there's nothing in his rules that state there's a limitation. And I couldn't for the life of me, I was trying to say it's 24 inches, but for the life of me, couldn't tell him that it wasn't unlimited. So I allowed him to like deny stuff on my backfield with his Silent King deny. But it's only one, so I was like, wasn't really that worried about it. But it was just quite an
Okay.
interesting thing. I think he did it until his last game when the TO actually realized and said, no, he's counted as a psyker, which just means he's got a 24-inch deny range.
Hey, Sindri, what's up? Uh, that's hilarious. I would like to also take this time, like our viewer count slowly climbing up. I want to remind people we do these lives. So you can interact with us. You can ask us questions. You can, uh, you know, coffee or tea. You know, Necrons or Eldari. Like we're all here. All just ask whatever questions. So you cinched that Necron victory pretty hard, and then you rolled into Nids, and I didn't look at his list at all, but what was it? I mean, was it 3 Maliceptors?
No, so he didn't have any Maliceptors. I think he had 19 Tyranid warriors with 3 Venom cannons in each, a 10-man Hormigate squad. I can't remember if it was one or two Harpies, a Hive Tyrant, Winged Hive Tyrants, and some Zone Throats with the character Zone Throat. I can't remember what his name is. he had a drop pod with pyrovores,
The
and
old testicle.
yeah,
That's the
and
worst.
then the drop pod thing.
That's yeah. That thing is whatever.
So that was quite interesting. And then he had some biovores firing over some spore mines. So that
Oh
was
boy.
so there's a lot of stuff to deal with. Um, but I think what he did when I spoke to him afterwards, we had a good chat about it. Was his secondaries? He was trying to go for the same as mine, so he was going stranglehold. But my paladins just went to the center board, and anything that came near just like I went through 9 Tyranid warriors in a turn. He was not best pleased.
No.
But,
That's awesome.
but he and I think again it was I think my list is best going second. I think I went second in this game as well. So he moved forward, couldn't see anything. His harpies charged forward and shot at the paladins which were in cover, in terrain, and everything else was in vehicles or in deep strike. So um, you pop smoke on a vehicle that he fires at, so he's now reduced to 4s. Your armor contempt is, I think they're -3, so you're still getting a 5-up save. And if he's over 12 inches, you got cover as well. So
Yeah.
you got a 4-up save against plasma cannons. So he had a rough. He charged forward, tried to alpha, and it just didn't work for him. And then I think what he forgot to do was he didn't move his winged hive tyrant into center board till turn 3. So he just kept it back, which gave me the opportunity to Drago, the Paladins go straight down the middle, hold the objective on stranglehold. The Inceptors jumped down both flanks and tied up everything else. The strike squad kind of blocked out the back line to stop him from deep striking his flamers in anywhere that was useful. And I think my teleporting Grandmaster, he just jumped around the table
just
behind his flank and just gunned down his Hormigans,
just
shot into his own throats,
having a
and
grand old time.
yeah, and again, I think he made it. I think on turn 3, I think he made a mistake because I told him before the game. I told him in turn 1, and I told him in turn 2. If you shoot him, he'll teleport him away.
Mm-hmm.
So he's moved within like 5 inches to charge me, and then shot me. And I was like,
Bye.
I'm gonna move now.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah. So
Yeah.
it was like, that was a big mistake for him, and yeah, it was. He chose some good-ish secondaries, so he scored quite high on those. But the fact was, again, he was stuck on his primary objective and one other to score. I think this was a 6 objective mission, so he could only score like 4 a turn, whereas I was just like
Yeah.
absolutely.
12s.
And like I
8,
said,
12, 8, 12.
it was just the case of because I'm so aggressive, it just bullies my opponent to like they have to fall back. They can't deploy where they want to. Um, it's just great that like with the Inceptors, you're so maneuverable,
Mm-hmm.
and the fact that you can teleport is great. And again, I think the Razorbacks were um, surprisingly useful going up and tagging things that he wants to fire. So I think like the pyrovores, so just go up and tag them so they can't shoot anything,
Yeah.
or going into his zone thrope, so they have to deal with with the vehicle, and they can't fall back and shoot and do any psychic, so they have
Yeah.
to just use all their ability to
That's
destroy
awesome.
that instead. So that was the tactic in that one.
So we have our first question. Sindri is asking, do you prefer swords or halberds, basically, on or do you run a little bit of both? And I know the answer, but I'll let you. I'll let
So
you respond.
all my strike squads, because of Hammer Hand, are all with swords. My Inceptors, I have 2 squads with 4 halberds in each and hammers, and then a squad with a hammer and the rest with swords. I think because of the meta, I would definitely take halberds in any one of my squads, because you're going to go into Eldar, Drukhari, Nids, um, even Necrons, and they're going to do better than the sword because they can. You don't need the AP3. The AP3 is only for Marines, really.
And
Um,
orcs too, like because they're
and
all
that's the Orcs.
like T5 now, so swinging at strength sixes.
Yeah,
It's nice.
it's really handy to get through. And like I said, with like the Eldar, the Drukhari, just getting that extra strength is really useful on those bigger monsters, and even their vehicles, which are toughness 6.
Yeah, that's a 5 support is much better. That's when you don't have hammer hand.
Exactly, and a
Yeah.
lot of my squad doesn't get benefit from that.
All right, so Nids, you just like you went on full like Orkin man like pest control, and you just like locked them into their corner basically, right?
Yeah, again, it was just pushing them back into a back quarter, not allowing them to score their secondaries as much as he would like to, and yeah, just not allowing him to target the units that he wanted to.
Okay. Very interesting. Now I wanna talk to you in depth about this next one. You fought Chaos Knights. They were fresh into their new codex at this tournament, right? I think only it had been out for like 3 or 4 weeks or something. It's pretty new. I've only fought Knights ever one time, and it wasn't Chaos Knights, and it wasn't the new book. So, what were your thoughts going into this matchup?
Um, I I think Grey Knights go into Imperial Knights and Chaos Knights really strong.
Okay, good to know.
Again, it's just the low AP from both those armies, and the fact that they don't have a reduce damage thing like dreadnoughts. They just suffer so bad to both the psychic and the shooting and the combat. So with not being able to regenerate wounds, it's just a bad place. And terrain just really really hinders them.
Yeah, that's
Um,
true.
you're either hiding out of line of sight, and therefore you're not going to get the best use of them, or you're out in the open. And if you go second, and I think in this one, this is the first time I went first, and it was just, I'm really sorry, but I think I killed 3 knights, little baby knights in turn 1, and it was
Really
like,
impressive.
yeah,
Those war
um,
dogs aren't. I mean, they're not like super durable, but they're not. They aren't made of tissue paper. That's pretty impressive.
they had 14 wounds,
No,
which
no,
was because
that's
I
what
was
I'm
like, oh
saying.
my, yeah, so I was a bit shocked by it,
Impressive.
to be honest. And again, that's where the last cannons came into their own. I think 4 last cannons went through and crippled two of them, which
Well,
allowed, which then allowed my Grandmaster to smite Vortex of Doom, another one, pretty much to death, and
oh,
then
so turn two,
Gather.
you were
No, turn 1, because obviously I went for, so he was back in his back lines.
right.
So there was 2 in the middle, 2 down one side, 3 with the 2 big knights hiding in behind the L shape. So I've teleported shunted with the Grandmaster. I've moved out with an Inceptor squadron, and then I teleported the Paladins as well down one flank. And because there was clear firing lines down the middle, all my Razorbacks went into the middle and just shot the 2 ones in the center. And down the flank, the Grandmaster, Paladins, and the Inceptors just shot and combated another one. So for his turn 1, he then charged his 2 War Dogs into my Grandmaster. There was one alive in the middle that moved on to the center objective because he had a ability to score, had an action for his points, but
Hmm.
the 2 giant ones didn't have anything to shoot at. So he had a rampager, so that's got no guns anyway. So they just moved forward, which I moved blocked with a Razorback, and then
Okay,
the
okay. I'm starting to see what you do with the Razorbacks. All right.
so he's like blocked in his own corner. The corner that he was like thought was safe was now attacked by the Grandmaster Paladins and an Inceptor squad. And yeah, like I said, he charged my Grandmaster, who then um, uses 3 up invulnerable save,
Yep.
didn't take any wounds, and subsequently just ticked them off the table.
Yeah.
And then so turn my turn, his turn. So my turn. So the round 1, he's lost 3 down the side, 1 down the middle. So 4 of his knights turn 1 of his baby knights, and
That's more
his
than half of what he brought, right?
Yeah, so his Ravager and his Aberrant were just left in the corner, and yeah, he was not happy after. I think he was really happy after his first 2 wins because he absolutely smashed face with the knights, but he was trying to get his Feel No Pain on his Aberrant, which I always denied, and it was just a downhill struggle for him after that point,
This
unfortunately.
this was George Crabtree. He came in 10th, not nothing.
No,
But
no,
yeah,
he
so he went 90, 92 the 2 previous rounds, and then against you he scored 54.
yeah,
So
it was it was a tough game for tough final game for him.
yeah, that's rough. So you like is there anything, if I were to go in into a match, like if I told you this afternoon I'm playing K Knights, Chaos Knights with my Gray Knights, what should I mentally be prepared for? Like, what should I look out for? Like, do they have any strats that are like wildly strong?
I don't think the strats. It's not the strats that are wildly strong. The big knights, like the Aberrant, is can be incredibly tough to get rid of. I think if it kills the models, I think you have the Warlord trait, which makes you hit on 4s, and then if you kill stuff, you can only be wounded on 4s, and there's no rerolls.
Oh, wow, interesting.
So that, and then he can cast the power to make him a 5-up Feel No Pain as well. So it's insanely tough to get rid of.
Yeah,
I
and they're
think
like
the round
24 wounds or something, right?
26, I think, with the
Yeah.
+2 to their wounds.
Okay.
So they're really really tasty. And then I think the Ravager again is, I think he's ridiculous in combat. I think it's like 6 or 7 attacks with the plus D3, and then sweeping, and it's just horrendous.
Really? With
Uh,
plus
He,
D3?
I think I think he gave it D3 from something
Oh,
or
I
another.
see. Interesting.
But it's I think it was either a relic or a strat that he allowed. He was able to do that with maybe like a Mark of Corn or something. But it was the Baby Knights. I was gonna say with he took like I think a lot of the rotary cannons, so they're -1/2 damage or -2/2 damage. So I get great against Eldar and other stuff, but when you've got armor contempt and in cover, you're on your usual save, so they do nothing. The melters, even the melters, so you're essentially -3, counters in cover, so you're essentially -2. So you still got 5-up save against melter.
Yeah, pretty. It's like that one AP ignore is just wicked good. Like
Yeah.
super strong. Yeah.
And and again, I think like going into my new list, I've got 10 paladins now with 2 squads of 5. They put an armor resilience on those, just sitting back on a 3-up save is nothing is upsetting to a lot of people.
Yeah, I was talking to Stuart Trainer yesterday, and his new list, he's playing around with 2 3-man paladin squads that you basically drop down in your opponent's backlines, cast armor resilience on them, score engage, and then force them to deal with them or ignore them and give you points. And like they're so tough. You know that like even removing, and if you do get to drop them, you know, three bases, pretty small footprint. You can drop them in like really small spots, and then it's like what's back there usually some racks, like some servitors. It's like an interceptor squad or an intercessor squad, right? Like who, those things don't want to fight paladins.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I think as soon as you mention like behind enemy lines or engage, and you're trying to teleport behind, your opponent ends up trying to screen out those areas. I know three's like not very big, but I found when I've played my opponents, they do like myself. As soon as I see someone's got deep strike or some sort of outflank, I am blocking out my back lines as best I can, and that's
Of
why the
course, yeah,
footprint of those Razorbacks are so great. So they block out a massive area.
yeah.
Sorry, I'm gonna keep jumping on about how good Razorbacks are.
No,
Um,
no, I like it. It's great. Yeah,
um, and as soon as you take those sort of things, unless you have a flyer, you're gonna struggle to get those like 2 or 3 points per turn.
yeah. So we do have some more questions. LD was asking what your secondaries were. I know we already talked about this, but generally speaking, you were doing purifying, stranglehold, and then
Grind.
grind, and that was typically what you took. And then you,
Yeah.
I think you mentioned earlier, towards the end of the tournament, you started not taking strangle, knowing that that was going to go away in Nephilim, and you started to do engage on all fronts instead, right?
Yes. Yeah. So I started trying out engage.
I
Yeah,
remember.
because it's yeah. So that's right. Yeah. Purifying ritual has had a bit of a nerf. So in like yeah, it's very small nerf. It's still really good.
It's very,
Um, Well, it was even better before because you could go
yeah,
onto objectives which were controlled by your opponent and still cast the power.
yeah,
So in late games when you needed to score higher on your secondary, you hadn't scored enough, you would just go onto 4 objectives and you score 6,
yeah.
and that's
And now
that's a bit.
it's 5
But
now, right?
it's
Yeah.
5, and your opponent can't be on the objective.
So
So
it's no
that's
longer the best secondary in the game. It's only one of the best secondaries in the game.
it's still really strong when you think that in most games you'll have one objective. It's no different to like, let's say you're doing banners. You're going to score that quite regularly on one objective. You can do that. So you're going to score a minimum of 5 over the course of 5 turns.
Yeah.
And then you can score 10 over 2 objectives over 5 turns. So it's only after that do you want to go into that third objective and cast it. One of my friends talked to me. So Mike Costello, I'm sure you've spoken to him.
Yep. He's been on here 3 times, I think.
He's a
He's
very
a
good,
great guy.
he's a very great guy. But he tells me to take men's interrogation instead because it's in the same category.
Mm-hmm.
So that is another option. Because what his thought process behind it was, you only need to cast it with 1. You don't need to cast it with 3 or 4 units.
Yeah.
And that's also had a buff that if you beat their leadership, you get an extra CP.
Oh, really? I missed
Yes.
that. Whoops.
So if you interrogate, so it's 24 inches, don't need line of sight, you equal or beat their leadership, you'll gain a CP. So in a
It's
game where you're
24 inches now?
yeah, it was always 24.
It was? Oh,
Yeah.
man.
So
Okay. You can tell how good I am at this game.
so so that's had again another big buff. And if you can cast high, it's really good. So if you must get it, then you might spend the CP to cast a 3 dice, or you have the gem of Intiok,
In Toku, but
Intoku,
it's all made up.
with again with the
Like,
+2,
whatever.
so you could use that for that one as well.
Sentry is asking, do you prefer Paladin bricks or tons of interceptors for mobility? In this list, you have both. And then you have the Razorbacks, which help with the mobility of your interceptors. So, how would you answer that question? It sounds like you want both.
So in that list, it was definitely I heavily invested in the Inceptors. Going forward into Nephilim, I feel like, well, what I have done in my upcoming tournament, I've taken 2 bricks of 5 and only taken 2 squads of 5 Inceptors. So I've gone for the balance of both. Because of the way the CP has changed, I've had to change the tactics. So I probably won't be as aggressive as I was, because I was spending, as I said earlier, between 6 and 8 CP in turn 1, which I can't do. So I have to try and change that strategy to almost be more resilient as I move up the table. So unfortunately, Inceptors are not as resilient as Paladins, who are incredibly tough. It's strange when we talk about the Razorbacks. I almost substituted the Razorbacks for a Land Raider. Again, because I could put Paladins in them and move them up the table, and
Okay.
armor contempt on a Land Raider is nothing to sniff at. T8, 16 wounds,
Yeah. No,
a
it
2-up save. It's really resilient.
it isn't. I just wish that. I mean, 245 points is still, that's a lot to chew. You know, like for a giant model, can't move down half of the board because like ruins are too close. You know what I mean? It's just,
Yeah.
I don't know. I love that model. I really want Land Raiders to be good. And when I saw the Chaos, twin linked las cannons or whatever, it's like, oh, okay, maybe all Land Raiders will get that buff. No, not that I've seen. And we have the Psi Cannon one anyway.
The crazy thing about the Chaos Land Raiders, it's also toughness 9.
Oh yeah. I saw that too.
With the D6 plus 2 damage, and you're like, God damn it! I would trade up 265 points straight away to have a Land Raider. Then, honest to God, it would be so good.
Maybe they will get that buff. I don't know. I was expecting to see that in the fact or the balanced data slate, but here we are. So still very expensive. I definitely think the las cannons are better than the Psi cannons that we have on the is it the Banisher that we get as Grey Knights players?
So I think, yeah, so you get the Psi cannons are the replacement for the heavy bolters, but the Banisher comes with, I think, the Flamers on the side.
Checking.
So I think it's just a redeemer.
Yeah. It's Flamers and a twin Psi cannon, and that's it.
So all you gain is +2 strength on a heavy bolter.
Yeah, but you can take the Crusader, right? No, that's assault cannons
and hurricane bolters on the side.
Yeah. All right. Maybe we can't take. No. Oh, you can just take a normal Land Raider, which has 2 twin las cannons. So, all right. I'm not crazy. My Land Raider is modeled appropriately. This is good to know.
But yeah, I think it for Grey Knights going forward, I think mobility is great, but you've got to also think about the long game. So if you play, like my game against Drukhari showed how fragile my Inceptors were. They would go and kill 140, 130 points of models and then immediately die to either shooting or combat.
Yep,
which is a shame.
That's power armor, baby.
But Terminators and Paladins,
yeah,
much harder to get through.
Yeah, and there's just so much there's so much 2 damage now as well. I mean, a lot of melee weapons are 2 damage now, so every failed save is a dead power armor guy every single time, and that that's just part of the game when you bring power armor is that they're a little fragile. So another question Sindri is asking is, how do you feel about like normal Dread Knights in the coming Nephilim meta? Like, clearly you are an infantry list kind of guy. You bring the 1 Grandmaster Dread Knight because he slaps. He always slaps. But like, how do you feel about the 4 Dread Knight list or the 3 Dread Knight list?
It's I think it's dead in the water, unfortunately. One, they don't get armor contempt, so the AP -1 is making you have a 3-up save.
Yeah.
They're only toughness 6, so a lot of weapons out there are going to wound you. So even like Howling Banshee going into you in combat are wounding you on 4s with AP -4. So every one of those are gonna wound you, and there's so many attacks that a Howling Banshee squad will probably take you out. Hail of Doom going into them again um, will really hurt you, surprisingly, with number of shots. The upcoming Chaos with I think it's like chain cannons and the Sonic
Yeah. I was
guys.
gonna say, let's talk about Noise Marines for 2 seconds, because woo! Woo! Some spice for you.
So they're just gonna delete a unit really quickly. So
Yeah.
it's when you look at that, the points are what, around 180 points if you have them fully kitted out. Where can you best spend it to be more maneuverable, hide, and to be fair, like the silencer being strength 5 -1 damage isn't
I know.
great.
It feels
The
bad.
the Psy Cannon at AP -2, again, a lot of things are still getting a save. And yes, you can pop the strat, but when you're playing a game where you're limited strategies
Yeah.
and you've got to be more selective, you can't do it on them anymore. And it also doesn't fall in line with the Brotherhood that I collect. So I'm going with the President Brethren because of
My
the
man.
rerolls.
It's my
You could
favorite.
go, if you do take the Dread Knights, you want to stick to the Sword Bearers one, which is again great for them, but doesn't really benefit the rest of your army. So
Yeah.
either you're going full on into your Dread Knight list, like you said, with 4 of them, but I can't see you're going to teleport one up the table, gate the other. The other 2 are just walking. So how are they? So you're
I
not going to be taking. Sorry.
I've been working with my coach, and he wants me to try out the for Dread Knight list. And generally speaking, you send them in waves, maybe even deep strike 2 of them, and it's 4 teleport assault, so that you rarely start with all of them on the board. They're a threat that they have to defend against, and you put all your eggs in one basket. You send it up. It kills something, scores you 4 points, and then it probably dies on the next turn. Because, like you said, they don't get AOC. 4-up invols are the swingiest thing in the game. Like, sometimes it'll just like stand there and take hit after hit after hit after hit, and like sometimes it just dies horrifically quickly, and like everyone's cries. So I don't know. I'm not that good. Kind of like I said, I'm trying this stuff out, and I think for 4 points, 180 points a turn plus some like maybe a CP. That seems pretty good for 4 points, but I've only played 1 game with this list, so I'm no expert. Also, I
It's
love the Dread Knight model. I know people don't. I love it. It's so stupid. It's so ridiculously. It is Warhammer to a T, man. It's love it.
I, I hate to disagree with you, but I hate the model. It just seems a bit silly.
Yeah.
Other than that, it's a great unit. And if you are investing into that style of play, then hats off to you. It's just in turn 1, in turn 2, you're essentially 360 down 1 points turn 1,
Yeah. No, that's
180 points down turn 2,
yeah.
and then you're back into the game in turn 3. And that's only if your opponent has sat back.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you play like something like Drukhari or Eldar or Nids, you're only going to be deploying in your own deployment zone. So that deep strike is no
Yeah.
good. And like when I played it originally, like I said, I shunted the Grandmaster forward and I teleported another one next to him. But then the other 2 would walk and be out of range and couldn't see anything. So I was on the opposite side. I wasn't deep striking them, but I was walking them, and I was essentially 360 points down, not doing anything for a turn or 2 until they got either teleported across or shunted in the next turn. But again,
Yeah.
when you're limited on CP. So I think my current list is 4 CP at the beginning. Now with the new Nephilim,
Mm-hmm.
if you spend 2 in teleporting across the table, you're down to 2
I know it.
in
It does.
some games.
It does feel like, oof, you know. And I play Deathwatch, and really one of the only ways that they stay competitive right now is they have in their Army of Renown, you can do a 5 CP wombo combo, and then you kind of hope that you kill 1 or 2 big threats, and then you can't really do it again for the rest. And it's just like, we can't, that's not a tenable thing we can do anymore. I guess we
Yeah,
can wait till like turn 3 and hoard OCP and then do it, but then it's like, it's way too late in the game to matter. So
that's true.
yeah. And then another Gerdson, which is clearly his real name, is calling you very, very sexy, Jay, and then wants to know what you think about the Rapiers Brotherhood.
Again, thank you very much for that comment. When I was running it, when you could have more than one detachment, because you're not going to use 2 detachments now, I definitely ran a rapier and I ran a present brethren one. And I think one of my other opponents I played before, Vic VJ, he ran 3, so he had sword bearers, present brethren, and rapiers. So rapiers are very good as well. I think the extra attack from their, is it psychic power or strat?
Yep, it's a power. Yeah.
Is really good, and that's another tide that you can then use as well, so everyone can cast it. So you have more attacks across the board, which is great on some units. So they are good. I can't remember what the Warlord trait for the rapiers
It's
is,
inescapable advance, which is advance and charge,
which again is
which is
nothing.
super good on a Grandmaster Dread Knight.
There you go. So that's not bad.
The only way you can make those guys scarier is if you gave them advance and charge and then fight first, or like something, right? It's the only way they could get scarier.
Yeah. So no, I think rapiers are a
Uh-oh. Uh-oh. I think we lost him. Hold on, everybody. We'll be back.
I think rapiers are really good if you have a lot of infantry and you're focused around that, and you can hit people in waves and get all those buffs off. That's another way to play them.
Gotcha. I think your camera is off, but if you want to leave it off, that's cool too. Here's the downside to live streams. Is that
Sorry.
Sometimes you have technical difficulties in the middle of the stream and there's nothing you can do about it, and that's okay. Welcome to the 21st century. So I'm sorry, where were we? We were talking about the Brotherhoods, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So please carry on. My ADD really got me there. Like, I went into kind of crisis like management mode and I totally forgot what we were talking about.
Sorry, I was just saying how like the rapiers are another good standalone brotherhood if you're gonna go into combat, as in heavily into combat, which we can all look at the Grey Knights list and go, there's not really much anti-tank. So the only real option is pure combat.
Yeah, it's, oh man, and like all that stuff stacks too. So like you can go Demon Slayer, and then cast the Rapier power on the Grandmaster Dread Knight to have 8 base attacks, and then on the sweep you're doing 16, right? Like,
yeah,
that's some like some Lord of Skulls level like insanity at that point. Not the same strength attacks, but like, I'm just saying that is a lot of attacks.
Well, it's really good for Grey Knights, but when you look at Abaddon and him doing his
well, Abaddon's also 300 points, so
but
a
it's
Grandmaster Dreadnoughts is 245. But oh no, Abaddon's amazing, and that data slate is probably 60 points too cheap.
It's so broken.
It's so good, man. I like And also, what a cool model! Like the Abaddon model is super awesome. Okay.
I actually bought him. I saw it on eBay for like 12 quid. Just bought it straight away and just painted it because I just wanted the model. It looks so
Oh
cool.
yeah, yeah, man, that's awesome. And then LD is asking again about teleport assault. We talked about this at the beginning, so I'm gonna do the fast version. Basically, if you're going into MSU, you should consider teleport assault because you'll probably pick up a lot of easy points. If you're going into something that isn't, don't do that. Right? Like if you're playing my Death Watch list, which is 4 10-mans, you're probably not gonna pick those up. But if you're playing against like MSU Drukhari, which is all like toughness 3, and if you can actually catch them, they die. You know, then yes, you should. Is that the correct take, Jay?
It's kind of the correct take.
Oh no, so close.
Only thing is, like I saying, it's in the same category as grinding them down, which is easier to score.
But 3 points, not 4.
It's 3 points, not 4. But the only caveat to grind them down is that you have to kill more than your opponent. Whereas the teleport strike, you don't. But you then have to tech your list into being able to deal with it. So can you guarantee killing a unit with one of those teleporting units every turn for 3 or 4 turns to score as many points as you can? And like you said earlier, it's like sometimes you're putting yourself out of position just to get those points, which I think I have in my new list. I put Gates of Infinity on my Grandmaster, Dread Knight, so I can, so he can teleport around to do that if I like. So,
nice.
So the teleport strike is definitely
a good idea. It's a good idea. I usually put Vortex and Empiric Amplification on mine, but taking away Vortex and making it Gate actually might not be a bad idea. I'm gonna take this last question and then we're gonna get back into your matchups. I think we want to talk about Hail of Doom Aeldari next. But Sindri is asking, what is your toughest matchup? What are you like when you open up BCP and you see that you're gonna play X? What makes you like sigh or roll your eyes or?
Well, Drukhari is definitely the one I always roll my eyes at. Liam is the person that beat me, Liam Royal from GoonHammer. He's an incredibly good player, and I am yet to beat him with my Grey Knights. I cannot exchange units well enough. He has far too many units that exchange better than me and are far more maneuverable than me. So Drukhari is definitely a list that I struggle with. Another list would probably be Sisters of Battle. With the fact that they have AOC, they have denies.
And then is it Martyred Lady that you don't even get to reroll wounds now?
Yeah, exactly.
And they have what, 2 super good secondaries that like have a lot of synergy, right? Like they kind of have, and then they got a points reduction on some of their best units for some reason.
Yeah. So the tournament I'm going to this weekend in Bournemouth at Beachhead, was it Bournemouth Brawl? There's a high number of Sister of Battles players and good Sister of Battle players, which I'm hoping not to face against until later on in the tournament. But if I face them early on, I face them early on.
Yeah.
It'll just be a case of can I outmaneuver and outscore them.
Yeah. Okay. Very cool. I haven't played against Sisters ever, which is sad. I was collecting them for a little bit, and I played a 1,000-point game with mine against others, but I haven't actually played against them with my Grey Knights. So, all right, let's get into your. Keep the questions coming, guys. I just want to make sure we actually make it through all of the matchups. That's the word. So, Aeldari, Hail of Doom. Honestly, this is the list. This and like a triple Mallet Scepter list are the ones that would make me roll my eyes if I ran into this. So please tell me about how you deal with Hail of Doom. So Tide of Shadows.
Tide of Shadows.
And deny everything.
that was it. So again, I think this time he went first, moved into center board, which couldn't shoot anything, so just deploy out of line of sight of a lot of his stuff. I think as long as you're in tighter shadows, a lot of the damage that he can hit you with is only going to be like AP3, so it's AP2. He counters and covers, so you're essentially at AP1. So like the things that he can shoot are like my Razorbacks. So again, I'm going to keep talking about Razorbacks, how good Razorbacks are. Really tough, really hard to like deal with. But Hail of Doom kind of like ignores that toughness side of things, which is fair. But all your infantry in cover, making them -1 to hit you. Just sticking his I can't even say sticking in tight shadows, staying in cover, and anything that comes to shoot you will struggle, and then you'll take them off. So I think in this squad, I think he had, I can't remember if it was 2 or 3 Dire Avenger. I think it was 3 Dire Avenger squads in all in Wave Serpents.
So they can fire out the top, right?
No. So they disembark 3. They move 7. They can advance and still shoot. So they got a big range.
Oh,
and now
nice.
And their guns are, I think, are 18 inches, and they all fire 3 shots. So in a 10-man squad, you got 33 shots because the Exarch, is it Exarch, has 2 guns, so 33 shots, hitting on 3s unless you can make them -1 to 4s. 6s auto wound and go from AP -2 to AP -4, which is insane.
Yeah.
So that was tough, but again, he fired a lot into my Paladins, so they're only 1 wound damage. And because I put armor resilience up, I'm in cover, so I'm -1 to hit. I'm also +1 to my cover, and I'm AOC. So AOC makes it -3. Cover and armor resilience makes it -1. So you're
-1.
3. So you're a 3-up
Yeah.
save.
So you're on a 3-up with your Paladins.
So
Against AP
Paladins
-4.
Paladins are just soaking it up and just laughing in the Aeldari's face. And like you said, I use my 1 CP strat to deny on 3 dice. So anything which is guided or doomed,
Oh yeah.
try and deny that. Because
Yeah,
if he's in range of you, you're in range of him to deny.
My first game against the new Aeldari was at NRTT, and I was running a Terminator brick list. This was pre AOC, and I just shut down his like little psychic phase like every single turn. And he's like, I don't know what to do. Like, so much of my army relies on these powers, and you're just like turning them off. And it's like, yep, it's all I've got, man. Like, it's like I gotta stop you, right?
And that's the thing, because a lot of Aeldari lists these days don't have an Autarch in it, so they've not got any natural rerolls. So unless they have guide, there's no rerolls.
Yeah, and if you turn off guide, yeah.
So it's quite useful. I think again in this list, he did mention to me afterwards that it wasn't his optimized Eldar list. He did have an avatar, which was very cool. And Drago and the avatar went at it in the center table, and they both died in very thematic theme. I didn't realize the avatar did fight in death as well for free at full bracket with extra attacks.
Oh boy.
So he just got smacked back in the face and just couldn't roll enough 3s. So that was terrible.
Back to the warp with both of you.
Yes, that was a big nice met in the middle of the table.
Yeah, that's a cool model too.
Yeah, the Dread Knight mopped up a lot of his bikes, so I think he had two squads of 3 Shuriken catapult bikes. So again, he was dishing out lots of like damage. 1 Shuriken to gain from Hail of Doom. Hail of Doom is insane. I think people will still use Hail of Doom. They just won't get the other benefit, which is either master maneuvers for the +1 to wound out of vehicles or ignores cover. So I think Hail of Doom, my friend's running Hail of Doom, and it's still really strong as a.
No, it's really, really strong. I'm gonna do a little self promotion, but I did a versus video with Brad Chester. He had just won like a GT with a Hail of Doom list, and I asked him all about it, and he says that this is just kind of the best build that they have right now. It's the most efficient, and at the time, like, nids were just running rampant, and he's like, it's pretty much the only thing we have against high toughness is like auto wounding sixes, and then just try to get as many of those as you possibly can. Like,
Yeah.
reroll all your non-sixes into sixes, because it's all you can. It's all you've got to, like, kill a T8 or a T7 hive tyrant or whatever, right? So
Yeah.
all right, so I mean, other than that, nothing really stands out. It's just you withered the storm, the hail,
Yeah.
if you will.
Yeah. So I think he underestimated the armor of contempt. I don't think he played any Marines up until that point. So armor of contempt plus the fact that I had the ability to put a unit in a 4-up immovable save and my paladins with a +1 save and making everything -1 when I'm in cover outside of 12. It was the volume of shots just got reduced by half as a result of that -1. So yes, I did get wounded, but having
Yeah,
3-up saves, having 4-up saves on all my units against 1 wound damage, it was okay.
yeah, pretty cool. All right, your last one here. So up until this point, you've been undefeated. You go up against Liam from GoonHammer with his Drukhari, which you just said you've never beaten him with your Grey Knights before.
Yeah.
And he's a very good player. So
Yeah, he's a close friend of mine and he's a very good player. So he kind where my tricks in the first four games, which was being super aggressive, worked against them. It didn't work against Liam. I made a tactical error where I teleported my paladin blob behind his lines to try and distract him and make him come towards deal with the paladins. Like we were saying earlier about like trying to get behind the enemy and make them deal with that. He just didn't fall for it, and he just moved forward with his entire army and left his back lines, and my paladins were just left doing nothing for 2-3 turns as they walked up the table trying to catch up with his fast army.
come back.
So that was a mistake, which and in hindsight they should have walked into the middle of the table like I've done in all the other games, rather than trying to deal with him behind his lines. But yeah, so that cost me big, and that was a bit of a shame. But Drazar is insane. In turn 2 when they can advance charge, and I think he moved from one corner to another corner, and in turn 3 he was in another corner. So he was in 3 turns he was in the opposite quarter and had
Yeah,
killed stuff along the way.
yeah,
He,
he's
he
he's insane. And like the fact that he was like one of the only characters that gets his own aura too, right? Like +1 to wound.
yeah,
Because he's an incubi, and that's how the keyword is. It's not non-character incubi or whatever, right? That's not how it's phrased. So he gets his own buff aura.
Eldar have done that to themselves. I think Azraman does the same for his Dire Avengers
Oh, really?
OPSEC. Yeah,
Nice. So he can give
and
himself offset
yeah, I think Jane Zar's the only one
or
that
double offset.
doesn't gain the benefits of her own Howling Banshees, but I think the other, is it Autarch? Not Autarchs. I can't, Phoenix Lords benefit from their own.
Interesting.
And now the Silent King does.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, because he's core now, so he gives himself his own buffs.
No, so the Silent King can not only can he teleport with the Veil of Darkness, he can also transport through a monolith.
Really?
Yeah. So we were talking. Well, that's my understanding from another Necron player, was that now that he has that ability, he can now teleport through. I think it just says core units. So not only that, so he can Cascoon command. Cascoon is a Cascoon command barge. The Lord
Yeah.
on, yeah, can also as well because he's a core unit.
Okay. Cool. That's a lot of. mobile mobility options for them. The Silent King's no joke either. So
He's going to be insane going forward. But anyway, sorry, back to the Drukhari. So Liam played it really well. He moved forward into the the three objectives across the middle, kind of left his backfield like open where I couldn't really do much or interact with him. And Jago decided that he didn't want to do any damage, charged into some grotesque centerboard and whiffed horribly, and then got summarily smacked about by 16 or so attacks and wounds, and didn't want to play anymore.
yeah, he had places to be, so he just skipped out.
So, like I said, Liam played it really well, and didn't fall for my baiting, and I will remember not to do that next time against him.
Did Drukhari get anything in the data slate? I mean, I know they got the same changes everyone else got, where like they can take more than one of their own faction secondaries and things like that. Is there? I hear I hear that Drukhari have like new life again because of
They've
these changes.
I think they've not been touched. Essentially, the only thing that I could see from the data slate changes was the witches went down by a point.
Mm.
But I think they've not really been affected. It'd be interesting to see how they don't, because generally the Drukhari don't need a lot of CP.
That's what my actual follow up was gonna be. It's like, you know, it's like the original AdMech book. Like they had so many passive buffs and command abilities and data tether this and that. They didn't seem like they relied on strats either. And I feel like Drukhari is the same way, where they just have so much inbuilt synergy that occasionally you're gonna pop, you know, a two CP strat, but for the most part, you losing your command points, you know, doesn't affect you as much as it affects, say, Grey Knights or Death Watch.
I think the Drukhari like benefit more over the passive incremental increase of CP across the turns. So having at the beginning of your turn and the beginning of your opponent's turn over the course of the game is a massive benefit for them, because they will always have a CP in every turn, in every game. So even if they spend all their CP in turn one, they will have defensive or attacking buffs throughout the game, which is really strong. Which I can't say much about Dark Angels, Grey Knights, because Grey Knights spend their CP like it's going out of fashion.
Yeah, I mean,
that
it was already rough that our transhuman was 2 and 3 CP before these changes, and now it's like you might as well just pretend that strat doesn't exist. It's like, when are you gonna have 3 CP to just willy nilly spend on like you're a paladin brick, you know?
yeah.
It's just, you want to save it for offensive stuff most of the time.
Yeah, especially with mine, it would be either with the Grandmaster using to be able to fall back and charge strat, because he has a teleporter.
Fall back and shoot and charge.
Sorry, fall back, shoot, and charge.
It's everything. It's really, really good. This is really, really good.
And or the Pressing Brethren one, which is the reroll ones to hit and wound, which is also really good. But yeah, you don't really, and then you're tying up that with the casting an extra power, or casting on 3d6, or denying on 3d6. So you're like, when you start like picking those 1 CP strats, you run out really quickly.
Yeah, it's true. So this has actually been an excellent transition, because what I want to do is start talking to you about like, how do you feel the Grey Knights are going to be into the Nephilim? You know, like obviously, like I said at the beginning, this was kind of the last hurrah of the Nachmund book. Now we're moving into a new era of 9th edition. How do you think Grey Knights fare?
I still think they're really strong against a lot of armies. The only ones they do struggle against is I know I mentioned about orcs, but orcs with swarm, like lots and lots of bodies, kind of can struggle into. The buggies with the ramshackle kind of affects a lot of the stuff as well. So
Yeah.
you're reducing the damage output. But into Marines still strong. Into not chaos now. Let's not talk about
Well,
chaos.
that's another question. But we can like circle back there in just a moment. But
Still good against Nids, still good against Eldar with Hail of Doom. So they're really survivable. I think it's about balance of where I was chucking everything forward in turn one. I can't do that now. It's a case of trying to slowly move and hold and do damage. It feels like I'm playing like Custodes, to be honest, going forward. But I'll know more this weekend on how they do. I think the fact that you have ability to do damage in every single phase is probably their best attribute. The mortal wound output is decent. Storm bolters are. You're going to use
it,
cyborg ammunition.
yeah.
But
Well, I mean, it depends, right? Like, I played my orc buddy, and you know, storm bolters kill grots. He brought a lot of grots. He brought like 80 something odd grots or something, and you know, storm bolters shred grots, and then they run because they're grots, and they are like leadership 4 or something. So you only have to kill 2 or 3 of them, and then they have to roll a 1 to, you know. But the problem is there's just so many grots. You still have to chew through them. But yes, it feels very bad into like Ramshackle is huge, and we have no melee weapons that aren't on a character that get up to strength 8. Now, I mean, Drago can do it. You know, the Dread Knights can do it, but like Ramshackle just hurts. it's
which is again why I take the Thunderhammers in each squad type thing, so that I can do
at
some
least
extra damage.
slap one without Ramshackle.
It's strange because, like as I said, that list that I ran previously is I save 30 points now because of the reduction in the Razorbacks. I'm still keeping rid of the Razorbacks, but I've now taken 2 squads of Paladins. I've dropped one of the Inceptors. I've taken a Purifier squad, and I've dropped Drago, and I've taken Castle and Crow.
Crow, yeah.
Just because he's 90 points and he's pretty mental in combat.
Yeah, I was gonna, yeah, and he fights on death for free. So like people don't know that, and then you can like leave him on your backfield and just scoring you, you know, like purifying, and then they charge him and he slaps back. and,
So
and you're like, he did what?
he can be quite decent. So that's what I'm hoping. I think he's going to be okay. But it's just like it needed some points drop so I could. I need to drop Drago. He's 180 points. I saved 90 points by taking Crow instead. And it was just a case I wanted more Paladins because
that's a lot of points.
They are ridiculously hard to deal with. So it's just getting the right balance of moving forward units and resilient units as well.
Gotcha. So Sindri is asking about how do you play into Chaos Knights. I won't rehash it, but we did talk about that in his round 3. He actually played them, unless you're specifically asking how do you play into them in Nephilim, which I think the game plan would be usually the same, except your secondaries might be different. Right? Like the armies are pretty much the same. You just don't have a ton of command points.
There's no points changes. The command points thing, I think I still spend between 3 and 4 CP just moving up the table and dealing with them. The secondaries probably stay the same. You're probably going to bring it down on the vehicles because you get lots of points. You're still going to take probably in this one. You don't want to get in all quarters, so you're probably play behind enemy lines, and then I probably still would stick with the Purifying Ritual just because you can easily score on a few of those.
Yeah.
And towards the end of the game, you can score quite high if need to be.
And they have no models, so they can't screen you.
And exactly,
You
they're
can
going
go
to struggle.
anywhere you want. The world is your oyster.
And that's it. They're going to struggle to stop you from moving around the table.
Sindri also asked, which you vaguely brought up earlier, but with the new Chaos Space Marines book with Abaddon, who we've already swooned over for a little bit, how do you feel when you match up into? And I know that is a huge book. It's like basically eight supplements. So it's a huge onion, and it's gonna take a long time for folks to actually peel back all those layers. But on first look, how do you feel?
If Abaddon's in the list, it's going to be a real struggle. I think the Abaddon, the Disco Lord, either Chain Havocs or the Sound Blasters. I can't remember. Is that what they're called?
The
Sonic
Noise Marines.
Noise Marines
Yeah.
are going to cause a lot of damage, just because of the volume of shots. You're going to be trying to make a lot of 2-up saves, but it's going to be quite hard. The fact that they have easier access to transhuman as well than we do, so
Yeah.
they're going to be able to do it probably more often than the Grey Knights. Stormbolters don't do a lot of damage into Marines and in general, so that's going to be quite tough. So it's just going to be a case of lots of mortal wound outputs with Psychic, I guess. So I don't see a lot of Psych is going to be in Chaos armies. I'm not 100% sure. I know Abaddon, a Disco Lord. There's no point taking one Psychic because you're going to deny it a lot of the time. But I just think, I think Possessed is also, the Possessed Marines can be insane as well in combat.
Yeah.
So.
I heard a joke that like the only thing that's really 100% like in every list that I've seen is at least 10 possessed. So you go 10 to 30, and from there you build the rest of your list. It's kind of like us where we're like, you start with 10 to 30 interceptors, then
Yeah.
you build the rest of your list, right? Like
So yeah, there's a lot of stuff in there that's gonna be hard to get through with like Stormbolts. I feel like the Inceptors have the mobility. I think the issue is Abaddon and the Disco Lord are gonna be really, really tough to get through, especially as I think they're both
I
9
know.
wounds or less, so you can't target them.
Yeah.
So that's gonna
So
be difficult.
one of my buddies always plays Iron Warriors, and he's been having a blast like reading through the book, and he's got this one wombo combo that you stick on one Disco Lord, and it is so you can't reroll wounds against them because they're Iron Warriors. They get AOC because they're still Heretica Astartes keyword. I'm pretty sure about that. Actually, maybe they don't get AOC. Anyway, they do get a relic that will give them a 2-up save of 4-up invul, and then if it's killed, you roll 1d6 for each enemy unit within 3 inches. On a 2 to 5, it's d3 mortal wounds, and on a 6, it's 6. Then they have the Mark of Zeech, which is once per turn. The first time that you fail a save, the damage is now now 0. So they have a Helix gauntlet, basically. Then you add, or then there's a Warlord trait where they get 1 more toughness, a 5-up feel no pain, and it's just, and you can't reroll wounds. So 2-up, 5-up feel no pain, 4-up invul, however many wounds a Disco Lord has, which is 9.
9 now, yeah.
Yeah, it's, if you kill it, it blows up and does mortal wounds. It's basically a targeted explosion for free. And then the first time you actually do damage, so if you Tau Railgun him, he doesn't take the 12 damage. It's just now it's like 3 mortal wounds instead, you know? Like it's very spicy.
Does he have the demon keyword?
Yes. I think all Disco Lords do.
So that's where you might then take Demon Slayer back in your on your Dread Knight, where you hit him with no invulnerable save at
yeah.
-3 or 4, I can't remember, with the sword, and just hope you do damage. So if you had Hammer of Righteousness and the Demon Slayer, so you're going to have 7 attacks, hitting on 2s, wounding on 2s. Immediately you're not re-rolling, but that's a high percentage you're going through, and then no
Well,
no invulnerable save.
for 1 CP, you could still reroll once to hit and once to wound.
I thought you said
that's right. Yeah, that's right. So yeah, he's Iron Warrior specifically, but yeah. Demon Slayer has definitely gotten spicier, and we know that one of the only codexes left is the Demons Codex. And if you don't think they're gonna be bonkers,
well, I don't think my Grey Knights have beaten demons either, because my friend runs Monster Mash with none of the named characters, and currently there's a 2 CP strat. If you're killed by a Grey Knight, you can come back, and every time I killed a Keeper of Secrets, it came back, and
I know. I hope that goes away with the new codex, because like Tide of Banishments is super good though. Like it's super good. But then you remember, yeah, they for 2 CP they just bring back a giant demon, and then you're like, oh god, I just killed your great unclean one, but here he is again.
Exactly.
That's fun.
So I think I struggled with Monster Mash into my Grey Knights, just specifically because of that strat.
Yeah, at LVO I played into a double Lord of Skulls list with my Grey Knights, which was only doable because he only started with 4 CP. And then he went first, spent a whole bunch of them, and so by the time I start killing things, he doesn't have enough to actually bring them back. But that would have been a nightmare otherwise.
Yeah, because the damage output from them and the number of wounds they get through is just too high.
And if you don't kill them, they're more dangerous. Like, if you leave them on 1 wound, that's the worst. Now they have more attacks, higher strength. You're like, no. Yeah. All right. Well, let's see. Andy is asking, what if you play into Death Guard, especially now, what's your game plan? I mean, they are very slow. They're not like us where they can like teleport. So what's your game plan into Death Guard?
So again, Death Guard is, like we mentioned earlier, Empiric Amplification for the Thunderhammers is where you're going to be like doing the most damage and trying to get Hammer Hand off. It's all it is going to be combat. So it's like who can slap each other the best.
Hardest.
And I can't remember what the Death Scythe AP is, but I don't think it's very high. So Paladins going in, they're just soaking up all that. The Flamers are AP 1 or 2, again, soaking up all of that. So it's just a case of Paladins into a Death Watch squad, Death Shroud squad, or a
Death Shroud Terminators, man.
Or the Blightlord Terminators is going to be interesting. But if I recall, all the Plague Marines gear is free. So they're from their latest update, they don't have any costs for any of their weapons. So you're going to see plasma guns and blight launchers.
I can't help but wonder if that's not
a typo,
an error. And not just because it's like, oh, you get 400 points of extra stuff. That's not what I like. I just mean there are now people, I know people buying boxes and building this stuff with all this and then painting them. And I'm like, dude, in 3 weeks, they're going to like release a FAQ. And they're going to be like, sorry, we didn't actually mean that. And now you're going to have to, like, I hope you magnetized is what I'm saying.
And there you go, just magnetize it.
Because like, woo, you're going to have to go do that all again. Or maybe that's the whole point, right? Because they're just trying to sell models, right?
Definitely. So Plague Marines are not admittedly, going into combat, that was going to be a big struggle because your 2 damage weapons are only going to be 1. But you're just, to be fair, the volume of attacks with a Nemesis 4 sword. So you're wounding on 4s, you're -3, so -2. So they're going to have 5 up. You're only going to do 1 damage, but the 6s on the mortal wounds are going to probably tip it in your favor and clear them. And in retaliation in combat back, they don't really do anything to you. So the Blight Lords are the only ones that are going to do the damage. Now that the artillery fire has kind of been nerfed massively, for -1 to hit now if you can't be seen and you get +1 cover, that's insane. They're so you probably won't see many of the, was it the
Plague Burst crawlers?
Playburst crawlers?
I
Sorry, yeah.
I still think, I mean, you're not gonna see lists with 3 of them in it anymore, but like they are super tough. They're high toughness, high wounds, like, and their entropy cannons. Those are the ones that can't fire out of line of sight, and those are probably the best gun that they actually have.
A lot of points for.
Yeah, I'm still scared of them.
I would just say it's just a lot of points for a unit that's going to probably just wound you with the entropy cannons, and I don't think they get rerolls. Correct me if I'm wrong. So it's only 2.
I don't know.
So 2 shots on 160, 180 points. The non-line of sight is going to be less useful. The entropy cannon is probably the only thing that do damage. Yes, they are tough, incredibly tough, but if you I'm going to keep going on about Razorbacks and tagging things with them, you just go up and tag a Plague Ghost Crawler with a Razorback, and that's not shooting at anything for a while. But I think going back to the rest of the army, it probably would take more of the Might Lord, the Haulers, with the Melter and the Missile Launcher. They're quite good. And the drones with the mowers could be, because they're quite cheap.
The flesh mowers. There's the bloat drones and the blight haulers. The entropy cannons are plague weapons. So if I remember right, they either reroll 1s to wound or they reroll all wounds if they're using plague weapons. I can't remember which.
It's reroll 1s to wound unless you have I think it's a Warlord trait where you can I think you're able to reroll all wounds, and that was on Mortarion. But I don't know if it works on them, but definitely works on the Marines and the Blight Lord Terminators. To be honest, if I was playing Death Guard, I'd probably just have more and more bodies, because they're insanely hard to chew through. And now that everything is pretty much OBSEC, they may be slow, but they're OBSEC.
Yeah.
So that's another thing to deal with.
Death Shroud Terminators being OBSEC, man. Ooh.
Yeah.
That's so they 50 points each. Yeah, plague weapons for all of their melee. Their cleave is actually AP -3, so it's not nothing.
But again, against the Terminators, I'm reducing it to AP -2. I'll be a 1-up save with the Armor Resilience. So I'm a 3-up save. So I'm a 3-up save. They're a 4-up save. It's just how much damage you can do in each. So I feel like the Grey Knights have the better combat and more resilience in that side of things. Just that if the damage goes through from the Death Shrouds or the Blight Lord Terminators, that's gonna really hurt you in the Grey Knights. But then you can take an Apothecary and you can bring back a model if you wanted to.
Yeah, I think there was actually somebody who asked about Apothecaries earlier. Yeah, so, and I just skipped over that. Whoops. Sorry, Sindri, but he was asking if an Apothecary is a solid investment. I've done a couple like Paladin and Terminator Bomb lists, and I always bring in Apothecary. A lot of it is to give them unyielding anvil so that they actually have OBSEC. But obviously, the healing and bringing back a model is also huge. How do you feel about Apothecaries?
It's 100 points that they forsake their gun and only have a close combat weapon. So you're spending 100 points for a guy just to support.
You're 500
And
points.
sorry, for
I
500.
said, it's like you're supporting a quarter of your army with this one guy. It's not. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But then you're to bring back a model is also a CP. So how much
Yeah.
is a CP to you? Yeah.
So
So
obnoxious that we don't get Chief Apothecary.
hands down, if you had Chief
So
Apothecary
annoying.
and it was 0, I would take him in a heartbeat. The fact that it's costing me a CP every turn, I rarely use it, and for 6-up Feel No Pain, and maybe bringing some wounds back, he doesn't keep up with the rest of the army unless you're going to walk slowly. So if you build your
That's a
army,
great point. Yeah.
if you build your army to be slow, then brilliant. You can then keep together. But if you're trying to be able to be here, there, and everywhere, he's just going to be left on his own, and without a gun, he's kind of vulnerable. But that's just my take on it. I know some people that do definitely take an Apothecary, but for 100 points, it's like essentially another strike squad of 5 guys.
That's true. It is almost one whole strike squad. Yeah. And strike squads, like, they're not very durable, but with Hammerhand, man, like I've seen them do a lot of damage. Surprising
Well,
amount.
they slap into most units really hard. Like General Marines, they'll go through. I think even if you go against sisters that aren't combat ready, they'll go tear through them as well.
Yeah.
They go into most vehicles really well. Elder they go well into. Nids they go well into. So for 110 points, they're kind of a stable
Yeah.
unit. I did think of a list which was like 3 squads of Terminators, 5-man Terminators, 3 squads of 5-man Paladins, and 2 Land Raiders, Drago, and a Librarian. And just see how resilient I can be,
It sounds
and not
fun. I don't think it's good, but it sounds fun.
it. Yeah, exactly. You're just gonna like hide in the hide in the terrain, be resilient, and not die. But it's just a case of, like you said, it's not going to be fun. It's not gonna. It's not gonna. Sorry, it's
I
going to be
mean,
fun, but
it'll be
it's not going to.
yeah. I don't think
It's
you
going to be fun, but you're
yeah, I
not going
don't
to
think
win.
you're scoring with that that
No.
list very well.
Yeah, so lots of smaller units are definitely better.
Yeah. So, I want to ask you two questions. I kind of asked this of most of my guests. We're switching topics here pretty hard, but so with the codexes coming out, every month or so, there's a new one. We've obviously seen at some like we're seeing some codex bloat. You can't really deny it. Why that is, I don't know. But would you rather a new faction come out and the codex hit and it's a little overtuned, or would you prefer it be undertuned and then they buff it later?
Um,
Like when the Nids book hit, holy crap. When the Admech book hit, holy crap. When the Orcs book hit, the freebooters list with the buggies, right? Like,
yeah, I think you want it to have elements of, like, to be honest, Games Workshop is a business. They're trying to sell models, and they're not stupid. They bring out new codices with the aim for you to buy new models and buy models that you probably haven't got before. So they're always going to overtune it rather than undersell it.
mhm.
So I don't mind that. I just think sometimes they go a bit too far, and then they overcorrect too far. Like, I feel really bad for orcs and orc players. I feel
I
like
I think
with
Orcs have a lot of life now, personally.
no,
I
but
mean, it
I,
was
I,
bad for those two data slates, though. Like, absolutely right. Yeah.
like the buggies lists and everything else, they were
Mhm.
insane. But now that if you take into the fact the non-line of sight shooting is reduced AP +1 armor save, I mean -1 to hit and +1 armor save, that kind of isn't as bad anymore. If you take into consideration the AOC as well, so Marines are like reducing their AP even though they got that +1 AP.
Yeah.
And then you go against Eldar and they go, oh, they can make -1 to hit anyway. So there's that buggy list isn't terrible. in today's meta, so it kind of works again and isn't OP.
Right, but it's not I'm going to go first and then destroy 80% of your army.
Yeah.
And
So
then
I
what
feel
are you
like
supposed to do?
so they cut the legs out of it and then add in all these new rules that would have cut the legs out of the list before.
Yeah.
So same with like I think Drukhari where they got rid of Thick City. Like yes, it was horrible, but it must have been boring for the guy playing it and for the person playing it because it's got like no shooting, so you should be able
Yeah,
to deal with
well,
it.
I mean, there are a lot of people that love melee. I mean, like the corn players.
Yeah.
They're like, I have lists with no guns in them, and I don't care. Like,
Yeah.
you know, or Blood Angels is like, yeah, we'll shoot at you, but it's mostly what we do until we can charge you, which is kind of like Grey Knights too. Like, we have Stormbolters, sure. We'll maybe like get a wound or two in there, and then we're going to charge you, and that's where we're gonna kill you.
I think it's like trying to get that happy medium because like with I think Dark Angels, Death Guard wasn't. I don't think Death Guard was ever like massively OP when it first came out. Dark Angels were the same.
The
Uh,
Mortarion thing was pretty hilarious, though.
but Mortarion, even when you take Mortarion today, like he can get one-shotted by long strike and some broadsides.
Oh, no, no,
Or
I, like my point is when the Death Guard book hit, or when they leaked, or whatever, when we first saw Mortarion's data sheet, the internet was like, this is stupid, this is insane, why would you ever not bring him? He's so good, he gets like 4 Warlord traits, he's -1 damage, 5 up feel no pain, 4 up invul, blah blah blah, how are you supposed to ever kill this thing? And then like 3 weeks later, everybody's like, no, he's fine. Because like people adjusted, right? They practiced and on TTS or in real life, and they figured out, okay, all right, yes, he's very good. He's also 490 points, and he can only be in one place at one time, so he's not that bad, guys. Also, you can kill him if you really want to.
Yeah, so that's the thing. So like Dark Angels, Death Guard, Grey Knights. I don't think everyone like got hyped about all the we've talked about the Dread Knight list. So having 3 Grandmasters and all the detachments and more Dread Knights to like back them all up, that was like okay, that was okay, but it wasn't. I wouldn't say it was like a top tier meta changing, gonna win every tournament type list. The only ones I would turn around is like Eldar. When Eldar came out, made me laugh that no one played Eldar, even though Eldar were really strong and are really strong now. But everyone went to Harlequins.
Oh man, if you're really bored, there's a TTS game of me playing my Grey Knights against a friend of mine with light Quins. Back when they had every conceivable buff that like now they've been toned way down, but like it's just me fumbling around for like 4 turns and then I call it because it's just like I can't do anything.
Exactly.
I can't get to them. He had 12 or 9 Void Reavers, I think. So it was just like, anything he like looked at died. It didn't matter what it was. Yeah. It was pre AOC.
Yeah.
Wow. Oh, so one-sided.
So yeah, they were like those sort of lists, and like you said, Tyranids. I think they. I don't want to like badmouth Games Workshop because I love the models. I love playing the game.
I
But
mean, we
sometimes
all obviously do. We're here having this conversation right now. There are 9 other nerds currently watching us too. So, like,
but it's a case of that those rules were so dumb. Like some of the stuff, like the Maliceptors being so cheap and doing what they could do is like, come on,
yeah.
man. It's like you don't need line of sight to pass those mortal wounds on. Brilliant.
Also, just like, let's not forget how bad like liquefier racks were
Oh yeah.
when Drukhari came out. Like, but so all right, so we could just like reminisce about how broken stuff was, but I've heard stories. Obviously, I started playing in ninth. Like, I think I got 2 games of 8th in ever, and then bam, ninth. So this is my entire experience. Is that all right? So we haven't had any books hit and totally flop though, right? Like, I think the most underwhelming codex release was the Sisters, and that was, I think, a knee-jerk reaction from those players who hadn't dived into it yet, and it played differently than the 8th, and all they wanted was to keep playing their 8th edition Sisters, you know?
Yeah.
And the book is good. In fact, Art of War says right now that, they are now an S tier army. They were immediately catapulted up to S tier because they got a couple points decreases, a couple buffs in the uh, data slates, and they have excellent scoring secondaries. So, even the bad codexes, in air quotes for anybody only listening, the bad ones are still very, very strong. Where I've heard stories when, like, what was it, eighth edition Grey Knights came out, the book hit, and they were arguably the worst army in the game. And it wasn't until Psychic Awakening that they got good. It's like, how bad would that feel if you're like, this is my ride or die, like, I'm gonna play them forever. Oh, the book is terrible. Right? Like, we haven't seen that, at least.
I would slightly beg to differ. I think Gene Stealer Cultists never got their limelight. They've their book is heavily reliant on the CP, so it's just gone down,
Yeah.
downhill for them. And they've not really had a chance. And then you could say you kind of hope Imperial Guard gets some decent stuff because they're in a really bad position at the moment. They've not. You go, oh well, my Lehman Russes are now 2-up armor saves. Like, well, brilliant. They
Yeah.
can't wound anything because everyone's got AOC. And
Yeah.
you got Basilisk that can shoot non-line of sight. Oh, brilliant! And you get +1 armor save and -1 to hit on a BS4 model anyway.
Yeah.
But I think they've out of their releases over the last 2 years. I would only say GSE are the ones that have probably haven't hit and won tournaments as a result. Like when Dark Angels came out, they were top tier and winning tournaments. Death Watch, Death Guard, Marines have done okay. Tau have come top tier. Necrons still do really strong and still continue to do strong. They've got even better over the course of getting more core and the recent data slates. I think they're going to be really, really strong in the next couple of tournaments. Eldar came out, Eldar and Harlequins and Drukhari all came out really strong and haven't really dropped out of that top area of things. I think they just it'd be interesting to see with was it Voltan, the Space Dwarfs?
Yeah, the leagues of which I'm gonna drop some big money and get a whole army all at once. I love dwarves, like I always have, and to make them space dwarves in power armor, like that like it ticks so many boxes just for me personally. It's like, okay. So I put a link in chat. It is a Tableau link that's put together by the best in faction podcast guys. It includes a whole bunch of crazy stats about factions and win rates, and you can drill way down to like, how does a faction do against one other faction? And they have a drop down for like what meta it is, so you can kind of go back over the months and like see. And I just pulled up the latest data for Astra Militarum. Cadians are doing the best because it's Cadia. Guess what their win rate is?
20%.
Well, it's better than that.
Is it? Oh, okay.
It is 33%.
Okay, were they?
So they are winning, yeah, 1/3 of their games. That's pretty bad.
I'd be interested to know what they're winning against.
Oh, yeah, actually, let's see. I mean, I'm not gonna go.
You don't have to go like too deep into it. It's just really, like, it'd be interesting.
They have a 71% win rate against Imp Knights, actually, and
Yeah.
80% against Chaos Knights, and those are their best matchups.
Because
Everything
they,
else is like Krons, it's 14%. Oh, Nids, here we go. So this is only the last 123 games. So it's not a huge, huge, but over those games, they have won 0% against Nids. Like, and remember, it's brand new data, like it's the latest stuff. So this is not a huge sample size. But if you go back to the if you also include the Tyranids fact for almost 200 games played, which is because no one's playing guard right now, so we don't have a lot of data. But yeah, I mean, you're looking at 19% win rate against Tau, 14% against Custodes. Like, just not great showing from poor guard.
well, the problem with the ones that they did do win rates against the Imperial Knights and the Chaos Knights is probably because they have just more bodies to go on to objectives. So they'll win the long game of attrition. They may not
Also,
kill
yeah,
them, but they'll just outscore them in primary.
I mean, they do have fewer targets, and usually Imp Guard lists have, like 8 Lehman Russes in it. So, that's a lot of nice targets for a lot of Demolisher cannons. So they have a great time.
And don't forget, they could hide behind walls and still see them, and they can't be shot back.
That's true. Hammer of the Emperor. Oh yeah, and then there's automatic or hits of 6 automatically wound now. Crisis made a comment that they thought guard ignored the indirect fire
Oh, they might do actually.
rules, and I'm trying to see where that might be, but
I think that is true.
yeah. Anyway, so
But
yeah, we'll see. Yeah.
still not great.
All right. Well, man, it's been 2 hours. You were wondering how we'd ever talk about Warhammer for 2 hours, and all I want to do is ask you more questions. But I do need to start getting ready for my day. I need to shower and make some more coffee and the whole 9 yards. So I think I'm gonna let you go. Are there any questions you have for me, or last chance, any viewers right now? It's your last chance to throw in some questions. So you're going to a tournament this weekend. Is it another GT?
Yeah, it's a 7-game GT in Bournemouth, England. And like I said, there's quite a few serious names in there. So Manny, Vic, VJ, Stephen Box,
Yep.
Mike Costello, Jake Harding,
Jake
all going.
Harding.
Yeah,
He's so nice.
the original Space Dwarf, which they took.
Yes, he has to play Leagues of Motown when they come out. It has to be his primary.
He's definitely buying it. I've spoken to him about it.
Good.
But yeah, it's going to be interesting. A lot of Sisters of Battle, as I mentioned earlier, so that's going to be fun. I'm looking forward to see how the new secondaries work. And as I said, I've changed my list as a result to include more Paladins and hopefully be more resilient going into those games.
I like how AOC has actually made Paladins worth the taking, where before it was like, why would you? But now it's like, why wouldn't you? They're so good.
Definitely. And the number of attacks they can get as well is really strong.
And they hit on 2s in combat now, just across the board, which is pretty spicy. So, all right, well, I haven't seen any new questions, so I'm gonna start shutting down the stream. I want to thank everybody who showed up, asked questions. I especially want to thank Jay for taking time out of the middle of your day to talk to me, and just want everybody to know, comment, subscribe, share, all that stuff. And if you're the kind of person that's into it, I have a pretty active Discord community that's slowly growing. There's a link down in the description below. So, Jay, thank you once again, and don't forget to call your mother.